Hey guys, before we get into this episode, I just want to apologize because I recorded with my AirPods and I also had earrings in. And so if you hear a tapping noise, it's the earrings and the AirPods. So sorry. But if you want to see what my earrings look like, go ahead and head to my Facebook. Shameless plug. Yeah, because their video is up. For now, with these new rules, if you're watching this within 30 days. But anyways, so sorry for the tapping noises, but do not let that stop you from hearing all of the goodness that is in this episode. So I hope this speaks to you and meets you where you're at today. And let's get into it. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Get Up 10. I'm like, do I normally say hi? What do I normally say? I don't even know. I know I do say welcome to another episode of Get Up 10. Dang, I'm getting rusty. I was shocked when I opened my computer just now to see that the last episode I did was at the end of July. Like it feels like a couple weeks ago, but time is clearly flying. But this topic for today has been on my heart, has been brewing, has been coming together, has been weeks in the making. And so I'm excited to finally just talk about it. I think, and as I've been, in my thoughts, I have realized that I have a tendency to record and then go MIA for a little bit and then record, and be like, hey guys, I know it's been a while, but I'm not giving up on this podcast, which is all completely true. But today I didn't feel like the need to apologize. What I wanted to share today was that the truth is, what I'm realizing about being a creative is that creativity comes in waves. And when the wave is there, you have to ride that thing. Unload the clip, write down all the ideas, execute. And when the creativity is not there, that's okay. Because our identity is not, yes, we were born to create. I believe that about everybody. We're all born to create something. And how you create, there's endless ways to express creativity, but I think we're all born to create something. And so, anyways, I think when the creativity is there, great, run with it. And when it's not there, it's okay to be still and get inspiration and get poured back into and just be still. And I've had to learn that personally because I remember building my own personal brand when I first started. It was oh, you have to be on social media. You gotta post all the time. You gotta be front of mind, top of mind, da 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 da. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm gonna post every day. And I did that for a season. If you've been here long enough, there was a period in time where I posted on Instagram every day and I was burnt out. I didn't even have nothing to talk about every day. And so I love how things are shifting in the social media space where it's hey, boo, you don't have to post every single day. You don't have to post 3 times a day. As a matter of fact, you don't even got to post on the weekend because people are really not on social media on the weekends anyways. Log off and live life. And I've really taken that to heart. And I love, love, love creating out of a space. I love creating from the overflow. That's what I want to say. I love creating from the overflow. It just hits different. I'm not burnt out. I'm not stressed out. It's oh, this is good and I want to share. And that's what's happening today. And that's a lot of times what's behind my post and my podcast. And I know that it works because I can just post whatever I want, right? I have free will. It's the internet. People do what they want to do every single day. But it hits different when I've been spending time with God, or I've been spending time with a group of people and I get inspired. And from that place of inspiration, I post. And those are always the posts that people come back and are like, oh my gosh, I love your post. Oh my gosh, I needed that, and so on and so forth. And so it just hits different when you create from the overflow, when you create from inspiration versus when you create from performance and burnout and competition and striving. Yeah, that's the word. So I think that's actually a great introduction for what I want to talk about today. Actually, wait, before I get into what I want to talk to you today, I wanted to give a little update. So, life updates. We got to catch up. Um, my baby girl's in kindergarten now. It got real, real. Nobody prepared me for this. Okay. Like, she has homework now. Um, she has like a behavior chart, and we'd be talking about life lessons every day. She's learning how to read. We got her first big girl Bible. So like all these little milestones are happening, and it's been an adjustment, but we've definitely found our rhythm at this point in the school year. And she's finishing up soccer, like real soccer, because last year it was like little kid soccer, but it's a little more intense this year, and I love that for her. And she's really like risen to the occasion. So it's been exciting for me as a mom. For me personally, people always ask, and it's so interesting because I just started listening to Living Fearlessly by Jamie Winship. Highly recommend that book. I've heard so much about this book, and I finally just bought it on Audible last week, and this is my recommendation. I see why it's highly recommended. But in the beginning of the book, he talks about conversation and how, like, in America, we have these, like, predictable dialogues, right? Like, living in Florida, you ask people, like, hi, how are you doing? And it's like this friendly banter when you're in the store or whatever. Being from New York, people ask you, how are you doing? How you doing? But they don't really care. You can say whatever you want. They don't really care. And they're not even stopping to actually hear how you're doing. It's just something we say, right? Um, this dog barking, my train of thought went, "Skrr." But, oh yes, okay, got it. We're back. So, um, people, I love, if you know me, if we're close, like, you know, one thing about me is I'm gonna shoot you a text and let you know I'm thinking about you. I'm gonna check in with you when you cross my mind. Like, I make that such a habit to, I'm really big on like giving people their flowers while they're still alive to receive them. And when somebody crosses your mind, reaching out to them. Like, those are things that I live by, that I practice. But sometimes I I will do my part and be like, hey, how are you? I'm thinking about you. But then when I get the response back of like, how are you? I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. Don't worry about me. I just want to let you know that I love you. Don't worry about me. And especially like the last few weeks, I have cringed every time somebody asks, how are you doing? Because I get tired of saying good when I'm not really good. Or I say, I'm okay. But then people are like, oh, great. And I'm like, no, like, I want to, if I'm saying anything but good, like, I want it to be a sincere good. Like, if I'm saying okay, I'm not really okay. But people don't necessarily know that. But that's just something about me. And so, anyways, the last few weeks when people have been asking, how are you? I haven't even really known what to say. But the past few days, I've come to the conclusion of like, when, like my answer in this season of like, how are you is fragile. That's how I'm doing. And that's okay. Um, I'm not like rock bottom, like life is not falling apart, but it's definitely like a transitional season. And there's a lot that I'm like growing through right now, and I'm excited to see what's on the other side. And I'm still showing up and like locked in with God, but yeah, like I still, there's some work to do for me to be like, I'm so good, life is great. But who knows? Like maybe tomorrow could be that day where everything changes. But that's where I'm at right now. But like I said, in spite of life lifing, I've really been spending time with God. And there's so many things that He's talking to me about and showing me and teaching me. And this is one of them. So today's topic, finally, is called The Being and the Doing. I hope you like that title, you know, because that's, I don't know, I couldn't really, I always try to make a fun title, but that's just what I felt for today, the being and the doing. And I think about these two, I don't want to call them extremes, but I do think of them as like two ends of the spectrum. Like they definitely kind of go together. And another thing about me is I love a good balanced, nuanced perspective, right? I don't like to lean to the left or the right, this or that. I like to acknowledge that a lot of things have a gray area, or like I can look at one side and say, hey, that's great, but what about that? And then on the other side, that's great, but what about that? And I like to approach a lot of things that way of uh, having multiple viewpoints or acknowledging both sides. So, anyways, when I think about the being and the doing, it's kind of how I see it. It's like there's the being and there's the doing. And what I've learned is that when you go to either extreme, it can be a danger zone, but there's a safety and growth that happens in the middle. And so that's what I've kind of been working through. And I just, bear with me, y'all. I do have notes today, but I'm really hoping that my thoughts just come together how they should, because I always want to speak from the heart, even though I do no, need some notes. So we are first and foremost human beings, human being, but we also have things to do, right? Like earlier, I just talked about being a creative and creating. And I think like to grasp what to do can be a lot simpler than to grasp who you are, because it's so perfect. I actually am going through a devotional with my networking group, and we just finished up the section on identity, and it was so good. And I had the pleasure of reading today's devotional live in our Facebook group. And today's topic was, you are multifaceted. And I love that because I've always been that. And I struggle with when people have, or life, people slash life have tried to limit me or put me in a box or put me in a lane when I know that there's so much more that I could do. And that's not to say that there isn't power in knowing, oh, I'm good at this one good thing, or this is quote unquote my lane. But I love to acknowledge our complexity, our multifacetedness, and all the things. And so what I'm learning is that there's so many, like, healing has layers, but I feel like our identity also has layers. The older you get, the more you get to learn about yourself and who you are and what you can do. Um, and so it's multifaceted. And so for that reason, I feel like it is more complex than here's what you do, especially when we have like society and culture that give us um, sometimes like very obviously and sometimes subliminally like guidelines, and this is what to do and this is what not to do and how to look and how not to look. Like we're always being fed all these ideas. Um, but even like when we meet somebody for the first time, it's not like, hi, who are you? And even if somebody did ask you that, you wouldn't begin to say, I'm this, I'm that. You would probably be like, oh, I'm your name, right? And names are powerful, but there's so much more to you than that. More than likely, if somebody comes up to you, like I've said, they're going to hit you with the, what do you do? Or who are you? If they ask who are you, like it's still not even, you're going to answer with like a title, which is still linked to like doing. But yeah, like when you go to some place for the first time, especially like networking, and as adults in different spaces, it's like, oh, what do you do for a living? What do you do? Not who are you? For real. Like, who are you? Not just like your name, like, who are you? Like, I am fascinated with people's journeys and stories, but that's kind of deep, right? We don't just approach people with that off the bat. And even from a young age, like I mentioned, like my daughter is in kindergarten and they're already instilling into her like performance-based behavior, right? Like she knows if I'm good at school, I'm gonna get XYZ color and I get candy, and so I need to be good because I want those things. Those are good. And if I'm bad, if I do not act right, then I will get yellow or red and there will be consequences, and I don't want that. Like it's already being programmed in her mind. And even from a young age, like we can find our identity, like, cause we're students. And so we just find our identity in, oh, I'm an honor student, or, oh, I'm on the football team, or I'm in the art thing. I'm in the choir. I do plays, right? And it could be so easy to just, this is who I am. This is what I do. I'm doing good in these areas. And that's that. Like for me, I was an honor student. I was a student athlete. I, since I was multifaceted, I did have talents with arts and creativity, but I kind of dropped those to focus on basketball, on sports. So my identity, quote unquote, really became like student athlete, like basketball player. Um, Even though there was other things that I did. And so that was kind of just like my focus and my routine in my life was like get good grades and like practice hard, work hard. And so I think that's part of what makes the 20s so complicated is that everything that was so simple and spelled out for you is no more. And now you have to decide, like, it's like all the rules that you've been taught, you realize are made up. And so you're like, oh shoot, like, what do I do now? Who do I become now? And honestly, like I said, like, as a young girl, I knew what to do, but I didn't really think about who to be. I think one of the nice things about growing up in Christian education from a very young age is that there are like awards for character, and they do want us to like be certain things, but I didn't really internalize that. It's like, yeah, it's good to have good character, but like I didn't really, that doesn't mean nothing to me when I'm like 10 years old, having fun, living life, no bills, right? Um, it wasn't really until college where I started to realize that there was going to be this transition in my life and I was going to have to take more responsibility for what I do and who I become and what my life looks like. And that is when I started to consider, who am I? What will my legacy be? Who do I want to be when I show up in the world? And even then, that wasn't like the primary thought for me. I had only taken that seriously because my focus was so heavily on relationships and making my partner happy to the detriment of myself. Um, so it wasn't until I had a really bad heartbreak that it caused me to pause and really consider, who am I? Why am I here? These really deep questions. Um, and even like I'm seeing that, college is a big transition and a big thing in our lives, but then also the 20s is very difficult as we figure out our rhythm and how we're going to show up. And I say this all the time, people always talk about the quarter life, the midlife crisis, but we don't talk about the quarter life crisis, and it's very real. And so I think a big part of that is identity. And even what I see as in adulthood is that we have so many people walking around and they don't know who they are, or who they thought they were has been pulled out from under them. And now they're left scrambling, trying to reconfigure, who am I, right? Like I've seen, I just see that so much, especially like in the personal development space in working with people. I hear so many women that they found their identity in being a mom, being a wife, and then their kids grow up, or they go through a divorce or a breakup or whatever, and they don't know who they are. And that's another reason why some people just like jump into relationship after relationship after relationship, as I was almost on the pathway to doing for a long time in my youth, was because I didn't know who I was, and I didn't have to think about who I was as long as I was focused on making somebody else happy. But that's very backwards, and it leaves you empty and longing for more, because we were made for more. And so, yeah, it's just a common thing that I've met women in their 60s and 70s that are still trying to figure out after all these years, who am I? But what I love about having faith in Jesus is that I don't have to come up with some beautiful ChatGPT poetic answer about who am I. The Bible gives me so many clues and things to go off of. Like, I've heard it said that if you want to know the purpose of a thing or the identity of a thing, in this case, the best person to ask is the creator, right? Like, even I think about my daughter. She is a little artist right now. She loves art. She loves to draw. She loves to create things. And if you know anything, it's like the same way that when a kid is little and they're like, and their mom is like, oh, they just said X, Y, and Z. I feel like the next stage of that is when they start drawing stuff. And they're like, here, I made you this. And I literally have to ask her, like, wow, like, this is great. What is it? I have to ask the creator. And in the same way, like, we have this amazing privilege and opportunity to ask God, like, what is it? What does it do about ourselves? And so in a sense, it's like, hey, God, like, who am I? Like, what have you made me to do? Uh, so, and also I thought it's interesting that like in many cultures, identity or a name comes from the father in a lot of cultural backgrounds. Like even for the most part, like here in America, I know like trends and culture changes and things shift, but traditionally, like when a woman marries, she takes the man's last name, and then the children that are birthed, they get their last name from their father. And even as you read the Bible, it's never like, and John and Susie created so and so, and then Susie, da 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 da. There are a few instances, of course. We know there are a few women that are mentioned in genealogies, but it's oh, it's usually like, and this man had this son, the the begots. The if you know, you know. This so and so begot this one, and this one begot this one, and this one begot this, and it just goes on and on and on. And if you don't know, if you begot just means that like in other terms, like this guy was the father of this guy, and this guy was the father of this guy, and it just kind of goes on and on and on. Um, and I heard it said that like as it is on earth, it's a reflection of the spiritual realm too. So like if we get that sense of calling, naming, identity from if we get our identity from our Father on earth, then we also get identity from our Father who is in heaven. Uh, And so, like I said, there's so many people walking around that they feel like I don't even know who I am. And it's a very difficult thing to grapple with because for the most part, it doesn't just come overnight, right? And you're not just like, oh, I don't know who I am. Oh, I know now. This is who I am. It's so much deeper than that because we are multifaceted and complex and we have all these experiences and backgrounds and like there's so much that goes into our identity. But well, before I go to what I love is that um what I've realized is that when you know who you are first, the actions that flow from knowing who you are, it's beautiful because when you are secure in your identity, beautiful stuff happens. Like that's like the magic zone, the glory zone, if you will. But if you have it backwards and you don't know who you are and you're just doing and hoping that that gives you being, life becomes very much all over the place. And like I said, when something changes or shifts in the things that you do, you lose your job, you go through a divorce, a breakup, your kids grow up, or you go through loss, then you're left like grappling. And and so I just see the importance of like the foundation of knowing who you are before trying to just do stuff. And even then, if you don't know who you are and you're just doing stuff, it could become performative and you're just seeking like validation. One thing I heard recently that I thought was like so good was that you are an image bearer with work to do, not a work doer with an image to maintain, which is like what I've just said. Like when you are a work doer with an image to maintain, like life is stressful because you're just doing, and you can never do enough. You can never have enough, and there comes this restlessness. But when you are an image bearer with work to do, it's beautiful because, well, I'll talk about some verses to just back this up. But like I said, like we're not left guessing, like, oh my gosh, like who am I? As believers in Christ, we go to the Word, and I love me a good biblical affirmation. There was a few things that I wanted to share, But then as I was writing them out, I was like, oh, wait, like, let me share some more. Cause like I said, I love biblical affirmations, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I need the reminder. And so how interesting is it? Like, the first part of an affirmation a lot of times is like, I am. And I think that is just very interesting because in Exodus, when God is talking to Moses, and Moses is like, who shall I say sent me? He doesn't say, oh, the creator, the this, the that, the like listing everything that he has done. He merely says, I am who I am. I am. It's so powerful. And even like our words are powerful, and we can, if God had the ability to create from his words, I think we have that same ability in a different capacity, a smaller capacity. Because if I could create with my words a whole world, that'd be amazing. But anyways, we have that same ability to create with our words on a smaller capacity. And so as I get older, I learn that it really matters what you say after I am. And the thing about life that I don't like is that sometimes we pick up like false identities that other people have put on us, or we lies that we come into agreement with our I am statements. Like, even I know there's been like conversation recently about the way that we talk about anxiety, and it's okay to, have anxious moments, but when you really take on anxiety as your identity, as many people often do, like when I worked in healthcare, I would hear that so many times, like, I have anxiety. I am very, like, I'm a very anxious person. And they've really taken that on as their identity. And so we have to, like, it's normalized, right? If somebody says that, it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, like, noted. But there's just certain statements that we say after I am that we've just picked up along the way that sometimes they don't even really belong to us, but we've just gotten so used to them. Like, when you're carrying a bunch of stuff and you don't even realize everything that you've been carrying because you've been carrying it for so long. That's how a lot of our identities have like come together. But it's so interesting that God says, I am who I am. And we have the privilege and honor to say some amazing things after the statement of I am. And if you've never heard this, let me be the first to share. And if you need this reminder, I hope it's right on time today. But some of the things that we have as believers in Christ, as Christians, is I am adopted, or I am a son or a daughter, right? Because a lot of us, we struggle with rejection, we struggle with abandonment, um, and belonging. But right off the bat, like, because of Jesus, we get to be children, we get to be adopted, we have an inheritance. And when you know that, it changes so much. And that's something I'm doing my best to really like get down, that I am a daughter. Like, last year, I had such amazing life changing experiences. And like, if you go to my Instagram right now, I used to have I did that fancy bio, like speaker, podcaster, da da da, all the things. Here's my website. And now I don't even get caught up in that, because I feel like the most important thing about me is that I am a daughter. And from that place of identity, from that place of being an image bearer, everything else just flows. Like, because I'm a daughter, I get to do this and this and this. Um, Speaking of which, like, that whole thing of image bearer, if you were curious, that goes back to Genesis, when God said, let us create them in our image bearer, which means when people look at you, you are proof of a living, loving God. Like, they should look at you, look at creation, and know, oh, there is a God. In the same way, like, when you look at a car on the street, you see the emblem, you see the symbol, you see the logo, and you know, oh, that's Mercedes. Oh, that's Mazda. Oh, that's a Toyota. In the same way, people should look at you, oh, that's a child of God. Oh, there is a God, because look at this person. And so that's, if you've never heard image bearer, like, think of it like that. Like, people look at you and they know there's a God because of you. And so, okay, back to my I ams list. I am a child, or I am adopted. I am a daughter or son. I am a new creation, right? And that's so important, because a lot of us, we get trapped and stuck in our past, but when we come to Jesus, we get to be a new creation. I am a masterpiece. I love that one because, yes, I am loved. And I really feel like I am loved is one of the core ones for sure. Because going back to what I mentioned before about like I just started listening because it's audiobook to living fearlessly. And even as I'm going through my, I lead a group at church and we get to talk about fear and some of our fears and how fear is holding us back and affecting us. And even like recently, I got to speak to a group of high school girls as well. And I got to remind them of I am brave and I am loved, I think. Or no, it was I am enough. But at the end of the day, I don't, if it's like love is the foundation for that. Like because I'm loved, I can be brave. Because I'm loved, I know that I'm enough. And so I oh, thought I lost my recording, y'all. Okay, we're good. um, I really feel like love is foundational because the Bible says like perfect love casts out all fear. And when you feel unloved or you don't know a loving God, you can read that and just think that I've never been loved perfectly or there's no human being that loves me perfectly. Because there's not, unfortunately. Like, even I wish I could say that I love my daughter perfectly as a mother, as a parent, but I know that there's areas where I fall short. But I do know that I have a Father in heaven, a God that does love perfectly. And so that qualifies me for the rest of that verse. Like, perfect love casts out all fear. Okay, well, I'm perfectly loved. And so I can live fearlessly. And when you live fearlessly, life is amazing. And I wish I could say that that is my truth, that I live fearlessly every single day, but that would be a lie. I won't say that I live fearlessly every single day, but I will say that I've had moments of being brave and acting without fear, and I've seen the magic, the beauty, the glory that comes from that place. And I do my best to become a person who is rooted in love. And therefore, I know that fear has no place in my life. Like, I love the verse that talks about God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Power, love, and a sound mind, or self control, self discipline. And that's something I'm like already teaching my daughter because these TV shows waste no time indoctrinating our children. Like, these shows are already, which I love the emotional intelligence, but also like my daughter's a kid. Like, I want her to be courageous and jumping off of stuff and running fast and taking risks. I love that. But what I've noticed is that from other people and from TV, I've noticed changes in her language to talk about, I'm nervous. I'm, I feel afraid. And I know that's coming from other sources because I don't talk like that. I don't like that's not to say that I don't have nerves or that I don't have my moments of anxiety, but I don't consider myself an anxious person. So when she talks like that, I know it's coming from the shows that she's watching, from the people she's hanging out with. But if you're operating in anxiety, you're definitely not operating fearlessly. And so the point was that you're loved. Okay. And knowing that you are loved, it gives you the permission to act fearlessly, to live fearlessly, which is amazing. Anyways, the next one, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, right? I told the girls recently, the high school girls that I had a chance to pour into, shout out Pretty with Purpose and Miss Kim, I love y'all, that we are answers, especially as women. Like when God brought Eve on the scene, she was the answer to a problem. And I believe that women today, we are still answers, not problems, answers. Your perspective shifts when you start to see yourself as an answer, not a problem. And to that effect, we have gifts, talents, and abilities that should be used or given away. Um, and one thing that a lot of girls slash people slash myself here growing up is like, oh, you're too much, you're too extra, you're too this, you're too that. But the truth of the matter is that if somebody thinks you're too much or too extra or too fill in the blank, it's probably not your people, or it's probably not the right place, because there is people slash a person, take what you need, or an environment that needs everything that you are. And so I just encourage them not to fall for that "you're too much" nonsense. I love me an extra too much person. Within reason, though. Sometimes we need breaks. But anyways, the point is, like, be all that you are, because you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are made with intention, purpose, and design. The next one I love is like, I am free, right? That gets to be part of my identity as a child of God. I am free. Like the Bible in Galatians says, you are called to freedom. And that's why I love the group that I lead at church called Freedom, because I get to talk about all these things and remind people like, hey, you are called to live in freedom. Like there's so much bondage in this world, but we're called to live in freedom, and only through Jesus can we truly do that. The world will try to sell you freedom and do what you want to do, say what you want to say, feel how you want to feel, dress what you want to be, dress how you want to dress, be who you want to be. Um, Again, like I hear this language in like the shows that my daughter's watching as a child, right? And to a degree, like I agree with some of those things. However, what you learn is very quickly, or at least I hope, that you learn quickly, that doing whatever you want to do, however you want to do, whenever you want to do, it gets heavy after a while. Like, for example, simply, let's take the example of like eating, right? I could eat whatever I want to eat, right? Don't tell nobody, but I went to McDonald's the other night. Embarrassing. So embarrassing. Anyways, I could eat all the McDonald's I want to eat. I could go out to dinner every single day, 3 times a day. I could buy all the bubble teas, 'cause if you know, that's my thing. Um, I could eat a pack of Twizzlers in one sitting, and how am I gonna feel? Like crap, right? And so it gets to a point where hopefully it gets to a point where you realize, oh, wait a minute, boundaries are actually good. Discipline is actually good. It serves me well. Um, but there's actually a lot more, like when you live with boundaries, it allows a different type of freedom. Even think financially, right? You could spend money all you want. Like, and that's what we hear in the rap songs, spend that check and get it right back. And I love that. But let's be real, like, that's not how all of us are living. But when we create savings, when we create investments, when we have different accounts and things, that's really what creates freedom, because we have options and choices. Um, so those boundaries are so important. But anyways, I am free. I am seen. This one is a big one for a lot of people because we feel invisible. I have felt invisible at times, but I think the Bible makes it very clear that, like, one of the names that he gets it in the beginning, one of God's names, because God has many names, is El Roy, the God who sees. And so even maybe I might not be seen by human eyes, but I always have a God who sees me. Um, and so you live different when you know that you're seen versus when you think that you're invisible, speaking from experience. Um, I am heard. I am known. I am forgiven. I am whole. And if you want to hear more about wholeness, go back to, I think it was the episode before this, honestly, because I think a lot of us, we come to terms with the fact that we're broken or we're not enough or whatever. But God's word makes it very clear that, like, in Him, we get to be whole. We get to be complete. Yes. So if that's something you need to hear more about, go back to my last episode. But I shared all these things to just say that, like, as believers in Christ, our identity doesn't have to be a mystery. It doesn't have to be so elusive, if that's the right word, or this complicated thing. Like, there's so much in the word that God tells you, like, this is who you are, this is who I created you to be. But then as you further build intimacy with God and learn His voice, He will tell you um, specifically and in more detail exactly who you are. And that's something I've been reflecting on this week as I've gone through Living Fearlessly by Jamie Winship. One of the things he has us do is to ask God, like, who do you say that I am? And I love that song that says, I am who you say I am. And life is different when you live not according to what people have said or what you have even said to yourself, but according to what God has said. And so if you're struggling with identity, I hope some of those things encouraged you. And even as I think about identity, I think about like if my child never did anything spectacular or extraordinary, which I believe that she will one day, but if she never did, I would still be happy to be with her because I love her. And it's the same way with our Heavenly Father. He's happy just to be with you because of who you are, his child being, right? And one of the things that I found myself recently doing because I was frustrated in my doing, I get burnt out, I get tired, I get distracted. Um and so then as I try to like fix everything and like recalibrate, if you will, because that word has been popping up. I fall into the fact of like, you know what? I'm not a human doing. I'm a human being. I'm just gonna be. And that's great. It's true. There's nothing wrong with that. But what there is something wrong with is, and this is almost where I went, is just being and focusing on, I'm just gonna be, but I'm not gonna do because I'm burnt out. And so that the scales like tipped all the way to the being side. But I couldn't help but to acknowledge that, yeah, I am a human being. I have an identity. There are things that I'm called to be. There is a woman that I am becoming. But on the flip side, because of who I am, because of the woman that I'm becoming, because of my identity in Christ, that has to also translate into the doing. And that's why I call this the being and the doing. And again, it's because of who I am. I know that there's work to be done. And so some of the verses that I think of when I was thinking about this topic was Ephesians 2:10, which has been heavy in rotation in my Bible reading lately. I'm going to read two different versions. Um, and even the structure of this verse, notice, I'm going to read it. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. There's so much in that verse. We're going to break it down in a second. But I like the NLT as well, which says, for we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus so we can do the good things he planned for us long ago. And so when I look at the structure of that verse, it doesn't say, we're created for good works. And by the way, you're also his workmanship and a masterpiece. The identity comes first. Workmanship, masterpiece. And then comes created for good works. So we can do the good things. And notice that these things have already been prepared. They've already been planned. And so literally all we have to do, like it says, is walk in them. And that's another thing I realized as I break up with striving and hustling and grinding, right? I traded that in for walking and resting. I loved, like years ago before Transformation Church got a little crazy. There was this series that Mike Todd did about the pace of grace and walking, finding that pace and talking about how like Jesus never ran anywhere. He always walked everywhere. And he has arguably, well, I'm not arguing, I believe it, one of the most purposeful, best lives, human lives ever lived. His ministry was only 3 years, but in those 3 years, we're still talking about it to this day. He accomplished more than the Bible even talks about. And he walked. Not ever once do we see him scrambling, rushing, or running. But how many of us live that way? I know I do. And as I create my business and my coaching program and things, it's creating a space for people to pause and for people to walk. God doesn't say, yes, there is like spiritual warfare, and yes, there is work to be done. And yes, sometimes, like in Nehemiah, they went to work with their tools and their swords, right? In one hand was the hammer, and one hand was a sword. It's not to say that sometimes there's not going to be a fight for what is yours, but when I read the Bible in the promised land in the language over and over, God said, I'm giving this to you. It's yours. It's a gift. I'm giving. How many times does God talk about, I'm giving this to you. I'm giving this to you. I'm giving this to you. And I think that's somebody's word. He's going to give it to you. Maybe that's my word. He's giving it to you, right? Like, if somebody gives you something, you don't have to like do too much for it. They're giving it to you. Um, Even like the Battle of Jericho, they just have to walk in some circles and shout. And I don't know about you, but I have the capacity to walk and shout. That's a good, you told me you're giving me land, fruit. All I gotta do is walk and shout, say less. I can do that. Right? And sometimes it's like the simplest of instructions. It's not like, I think sometimes we make it so much harder than we have to be because we're performing from a place of insecurity. And when I read that, no, like, yes, you are created to do good things, but they've been already established, already planned. It takes a load off. I feel peace in that. So remember, like, because you're a masterpiece and you're like a new creation, you were created for good works and they've already been planned. You just gotta walk in it. And I mean, let's not skip over James 2:26. Faith without works is dead. But I love that, like, as a believer, I'm not doing my works to earn anything. I'm doing, next verse, Matthew 5:16. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. I'm not doing good works to blow me up. I'm not doing good works so that I can make it to the top and be all that and da 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 da. It's for his glory. Like one of my favorite Christian rappers in my household, we love KB, and he literally has a clothing brand called HGA. Like that's part of his brand, HGA, and it means his glory alone. Recently I had the pleasure of seeing him perform live, and I'm just noticing like there's such a difference in the way the world operates and the way that we get to operate as believers, right? In the world, it's like, look at me. I'm the best. I'm the greatest. I'm a god. I'm a goddess. I'm a king. Da 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 da. Like all these things that it's like me. I. And then people get crushed because we were not created for the weight of glory. And it's so true. Or like I said, like when that identity shifts, something changes, they don't know what to do with themselves. Like I think of so many professional athletes, college athletes, that when that season comes to an end, when retirement comes, when injury comes, they don't know what to do with themselves. In the same way that like when you build up, when you like put yourself on this pedestal built from like the praises of people, because if you live by their praise, you'll die by their silence. But anyways, it just gets crazy when the focus is all on you, but when the focus is on God and the focus is on others, it's a whole new world. And again, you are taking a load off of yourself because now you're not responsible for making sure you blow up. You're not responsible for making sure you make it to the top. God is, right? Like it's so like the Jesus is like, it's like in his prayers and things, it's like because he wants to glorify his Father. It's always pointing back to the Father. And in return, it's like this vertical relationship. In return, because Jesus is pointing back to the Father will the Father exalts him and gives him glory because he knows that in return he's gonna point it back to him. And it's the same way for us. Like the Bible literally says he exalts the wait, let me make sure I'm saying this right. He exalts the humble and he brings, I should have added this to the list, but I didn't know I was going to say this. He exalts the humble, but he brings low the proud. Um, and pride, that's another podcast topic, not for today. But yeah, like the point is we are image bearers with work to do, not work doers with an image to maintain. From that space of identity, from knowing who we are, who God says we are, we get to do amazing and great things. Like one thing that I'm really enjoying in my 20s is hearing people's stories and hearing people's journey, and even like people that we would call successful, um, their paths have they have the most sometimes unexpected paths You would never guess that they've been through all that they've been through. And I think we can oversimplify, especially like as Americans in the culture, this culture that we're in, of like, I know I did. Like, I just thought that adult life was just like, or life was just supposed to be like, be good, get good grades, graduate, get a good job, have a happy life. Seems so simple, right? A simple upward trajectory, but then life starts lifing, um, for some of us earlier than others. And then we realize, oh, like life is actually not just a straight line. Like there's hills and valleys, twists and turns, curves, loop-de-loops, and all the things. And yes, if you zoom out, it will be that upward trajectory. But if you zoom in, I'm thinking about the stock market. If you trade, if you invest, right? Um, the way that you look at a chart, you can adjust the settings to for the time frame. The way a chart looks on a smaller increment, like from a daily or a weekly, versus the chart when you look at it over 5 years, 10 years, overall it is going up. But when you're zoomed in, it does look a little crazy. And I think that's how a lot of our lives are. Um, and so it's okay if it's not so simple and straightforward, and you're coming to that place where you realize, oh, this is not going to be as simple as I thought. But be encouraged, because look at all the amazing things that God has said about you. And I bet there's even more he wants to tell you if you'll spend time with him, if you'll get in his word. Um, like if you go back to, I'm just going to read the list plainly because I feel like I was a little, I broke it down, so you might have not caught it all, but I'm just going to read it one more time. I am a child, adopted, a son or daughter, a new creation, a masterpiece, loved, fearfully and wonderfully made, free, seen, heard, known, forgiven, whole. And there's even more that I didn't even get to say here, but like literally all of these things have a verse that supports them or that they've come from. And so as you spend more time reminding yourself of these things from that space, beautiful things will come, good things will come, and that's when life is beautiful and exciting. Oh, so yeah, like as I was saying, like I really enjoyed listen. That's part of the reason why I love podcasting and listening to podcasts. I love to hear people's stories and journeys, because we just see people at the top and we just assume that it's always been like that they were always there. But when you hear their journey and their story, you get to hear the twists and turns, the ups and downs, and the behind the scenes. And you realize like, oh wow, okay, so like if God can do that with their life, what can he do with mine? And that's kind of the season that I'm in. Um, and I'm excited. Like I had to put together a resume recently, and I was looking back on it like, dang, I'm getting old. But also I'm like, a resume is a picture of your accomplishments, and it's just like a snippet of your journey, if in a way. And it's just kind of incredible to see, all that we can accomplish and do. Um, and another thing I just think is so fascinating is like I've heard people say they have an identity crisis because they didn't even expect to be alive this long. And I think that's so interesting and fascinating. A little sad, but it's interesting. And so now they're left to grapple with these big questions as well. Um, it's just incredible. But I think what I want to land the plane with is that, I'm just gonna say it again, you're an image bearer with work to do. The image bearer part comes first. The identity comes first. The I ams, they come first. And from that place, you're going to create great things. You're going to do great things. Be encouraged if you don't know the answers of who am I or what to do. That's part of the journey. Um, and maybe you do know who you are. And maybe you just need that reminder. Hey, boo, get back to work. You got work to do. Somebody's waiting on you, right? Maybe you've been sitting in depression. Maybe you've been sitting in procrastination. Maybe you're recovering from a big loss. Hey, boo, you got work to do, right? You still are all of those things that I said. Nobody could take that from you. And so from that place, like, do those good things, those great things. So yeah, So funny because when I sat down to record today, I was like, oh, I don't know how long this podcast is going to be. And every time I think, oh, I don't know how long this podcast is going to be, it ends up being like almost an hour. Certified yapper. But that's all I have for today on being and doing. And I hope in all of that that you took something away. My book is still for sale, of course. Thrive, How to Let Go, Find Purpose and Flourish When Staying Seems Easier. Get it from me directly because I'll be happy to sign it for you. And I get to keep more of the income that way as compared to like if you got off Amazon. So get it from me directly. I'm going to update the links on my website. I think it's already in my social media. Do I have any announcements? Am I doing anything? I don't know, but we just launched the 8th location in St. Pete for Purposeful Living Women, my networking group, and it was absolutely amazing. So if you're listening to me and you're in the Tampa Bay area, or you're visiting the Tampa Bay area and you're looking for some new friends, some new community, come check us out, Purposeful Living Women. What else? What else? I don't know. I don't really like to promote myself, but yeah. Thank you for listening, and I hope you got something good from this. And if you're tuning in on the tail end, go back and listen from the beginning. And remember that you are an image bearer. You are so many great things, and be careful what you allow yourself, others to say that you are or are not, because you are so much. Okay, love you, bye.